Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour. Select the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker from audio settings. If necessary, join the webinar using your phone. Use the Q&A panel to share your questions. This webinar is being recorded. Attendees will receive the recording. Let's tune in.
Hello everyone, greetings from Harbinger. My name is Anuj and I'm your moderator for today's exciting event. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for this interactive learning power hour session hosted by Harbinger. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, please allow me to provide some context. Power Hour is a series of interactive roundtable discussions hosted by Harbinger, where industry experts share their experiences and insights on various topics. The topic for today's discussion is Strategizing and Budgeting e-learning initiatives for 2024. With that, it is time to introduce our host for today's Power Hour session. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Vikas Joshi. Dr. Vikas Joshi is a business leader who is passionate about product development and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software products those make a difference. A key part of Vikas's mission is to inspire tech professionals and entrepreneurs to grow and develop. As the founder and CEO of Harbinger Group, Vikas drives Harbinger's vision with a relentless focus on innovation. His doctoral research at the University of Pennsylvania was on entrepreneurial learning. He is an alumnus of the Harvard Business School. We welcome you, Vikas, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Anuj, and hello, everyone. Yes, it's that time of the year when L&D leaders start putting together their budget requests for the next year. And that in turn gets people thinking about their strategies and priorities for learning. A CLO must strike a fine balance between delivering exceptional learner experiences to the employees, managing costs at the same time, and above all, meeting business objectives. Today, we have a great panel of experienced learning leaders to discuss all of that and more. And here's our game plan for today. We'll talk about the changes that we need to consider while planning for the 2024 L&D strategies and budgets. We will look at the trends that may impact learning and development strategies and budgeting plans. And we will go a little deeper into the impact of AI on budget composition for tools, systems, and new initiatives. So that's a full agenda. But before we go there and bring our panel in, I want us to just take a look back and see how 2023 panned out for learning leaders, starting with, of course, budgets. The question is, on the average, what kind of budgets did companies have for their 2023 learning and development? And here's the answer to that. According to a recently released Training Magazine report, large companies employing more than 10,000 had an average budget of 16.1 million. Mid-sized companies, 1,000 to 10,000 employees had $1.5 million. Small companies, fewer than 1,000 employees, had $500,000. So these are just some headline numbers. Now, with all this money, how many hours of learning did they actually deliver to the employees? Let's take a look at that. As you can see, large, mid-size, and small companies delivered somewhere between approximately 50 to 60 hours per employee per year. And the training spend per employee was what it is. The larger companies seem to have realized some economies of scale here. whereas the smaller companies have had to spend more per employee in order to deliver to their learning objectives. So we can now ask, how are the budgets getting spent? And by the way, a link to this report will be posted in your chat, so you're going to get all these numbers. There are three broad buckets of spending, and here's how the budgets break out. The biggest chunk goes in staff payroll, people who work for L&D. The smallest part is for outsourcing spend. So here you're talking about the technology, the tools, the content development, outsourcing, the content that you buy, all of that is within those 10%. And then approximately a quarter, a little over a quarter, is overheads and other infrastructural expenses. So that's how the spend splits out. So finally, we asked the question, did training budgets increase or decrease or stay the same during 2023? Any guesses? Let's find out. About 49% participants said that their budgets remained the same. About 40% said that through the year 2023, their budgets increased, and 64% of them cited increased scope of training programs as the primary reason. And I'm sure our panel will go into some depth of this, but I just wanted to lay this background. Where the budgets were cut, the most cited reason was economic uncertainty. Okay, so with this background, now we're going to ask you to go to the polls and answer just a couple of quick questions. The first question is, how do you perceive your budgets moving next year? Are they going to go up or down or remain pretty much the same?
Yeah, the poll is up on the screen for everyone. We'll give 15 more seconds, requesting everyone to do the poll. Okay, so shall we close this poll?
Yeah. Let's see.
The results are coming up on the screen. Yeah, here you go.
Right. So there seems to be some guarded optimism on the budgets among our participants here. 56% think that budgets will increase slightly, 17% significantly. Which brings us to the other question. Given a budget, how would your spend composition change? What would you be looking at as the main reasons for the changes?
So here's the second poll on the screen.
And if you do select others, feel free to chat in your response. We're monitoring the chat.
Let's give another 30 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, so let's end the poll and share the results. Here you go.
Yep. Looks like GenAI and skilling are neck and neck here. Well, thank you. Thank you very much once again. And now it's time to welcome our distinguished panel. And let me take a minute to introduce both of them. Hugh Rambo joins us from Pittsburgh today. Hugh has worked with Verizon and WNS Global in the past. He stands at the forefront of transformative digital learning. He is someone who combines a background in business, instructional design, and customer service because he has spent many years in the BPO industry. Over 19 years of dedicated experience. He recently clinched a prestigious Brandon Hall Award for his outstanding contributions to online learning strategy, implementation, and measurement. And measurement is important in these industries. His visionary leadership has resulted in the creation of a robust online ecosystem of training programs, catalyzing a profound cultural shift toward a learning-first organization. And he will tell us more about it as we go. He has served on classroom, virtual, e-learning, instructional design teams in several Fortune 100 companies. He possesses a holistic understanding of the learning process. Welcome, Hugh. And do tell us what makes you interested in this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vikas. I'm interested in this topic today because I have a background and experience with procurement and contracts from working at WNS Denali. And I find it really interesting, the MSA, RFI, RFP, SOW, contracts, right? So when we talk about spend and we look at global spend and we talk about, I love the fact that you use the idea of a statement of a skill. We really have transcended as a global skill economy for learning and development. We're seeing, offshore, nearshore L&D companies are shifting spend from the United States to other global skill sets. And I also believe this might be the year where budget locks get unlocked. I think technology is evolving so quickly, and who knows what tools will be available in June. So this is a really interesting topic to me, and I always like to take a Socratic method of asking why. Why are we doing that? Why does that happen? So thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. We also have Victoria Feldman. She's head of learning and development at Amazon. Victoria is an accomplished leader with a vast background in enhancing employee experience, driving performance excellence, promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, and fostering organizational and cultural transformation. She excels at building, scaling, and maximizing leadership development functions. Victoria has helped businesses prepare for tomorrow's diverse L&D challenges in high growth and rapidly changing environments. Her successful initiatives have led to remarkable improvements in efficiency and employee satisfaction for a range of renowned tech companies, including Meta, PayPal, Visa, Rakuten, and Uber, as well as several Fortune 500 companies. It's great to have you here, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
And do share with us what makes you tick when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, what makes me tick when it comes to this topic is, I guess, the diverse needs is meeting the needs of the business with the budget and with promoting the interest of the employees.
Mm-hmm.
So finding that perfect middle ground between all the diverse interests that we have, and doing more with less, considering our economy. So yeah, I would respond to the poll when it was launched that our budget unfortunately is going to be less this year than the other companies, and it's due to the economy and companies scaling down and trying to be more lean. So, and trying to use AI and using technology to replace some skills that before humans were responsible of. So how can we do more with less? So this is what makes me tick.
Okay, well, wonderful to have you on board today. And clearly, I mean, you have a lot of background in change management, executive coaching. So it's a diverse background. You have a global exposure. I believe you've spent time outside of the United States during your early career. So all of that would be a great background to build on as we do this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I lived in 5 countries. I speak 5 languages. I worked with people, with employees in Asia, in Europe, in France, in the UK, in the Middle East, and now in the US. So yeah, it's a lot of experience, but yeah, very different cultures and different ways that people learn as well.
Right. So you have this unique vantage point as head of learning and development at Amazon. From where you stand, what are the drivers of L&D strategy in 2024?
Yeah, so the drivers are mostly, of course, priority of the business, where the business is going, what we want to focus on. How many people, for example, now we are in hiring freeze. So how can we, it's what's happening today. So this is one of the challenges that the businesses faces. So how are we going to focus on upskilling and reskilling existing employees and while ensuring job satisfaction? And another priorities that we have is that I feel like we are shifting now from focusing on business outcomes to focusing more on behaviors. And this is how we measure today's success of learning, in understanding and observing what kind of behaviors the employees have when they complete the training and how we can sustain them for the long term. And of course, generative AI as well is coming to play that helps us create and scale learning to the large audience. It helps us with things that, before we needed the humans like generating videos or generating content. Now we can use AI technologies, but it's not to replace us. It's more to help and understand what the human side needs to accomplish and how can AI help us accomplish it. So it's not replacing, it's more like helping us or complementing our skills. And understanding, what I mostly focus with my job on people skills, so less on technical skills. So I develop emotional intelligence, communication, leadership development, career development of the employees. So mostly kind of human side of business, human behavior.
Absolutely. And this is an amazing problem statement. So you have reduced budgets, hiring freeze. The measurement is now moving from business outcome to behaviors, and you have AI to your help. So how do you rewrite the budget? So this is amazing. This is a great segue into our next topic, which is how those drivers are impacting budget allocations. So I'm going to ask, starting with you, what's driving CLOs to relook at the L&D budgets, and in what way? You said budgets used to be locked for 3 or 4 years, and now they're coming unlocked. So just go a little bit deeper into that and let us know what's this new way of looking at budgets.
Yeah, when CLOs are looking at budgets for L&D, I think there's 2 responses to this. One is are we in a growth industry? So if you're in a growth industry, like our poll was answered today, the expectations are the spend will go up. Growth companies and industries know that they have to hire or retain top talent. Their verticals, I think of like healthcare, and I've seen a lot of different healthcare training initiatives, and they're starting to realize that they're behind the times in training, and it's painfully aware. They have a lot of different HIPAA requirements. There's all types of different things that go on there. And I think Victoria said something that really resonates with me, where, ROI seems to be the number decision driver from a CLO perspective. And I actually think that impact is more important to the organization. Impact can look like many things, right? We talked about change management. We've moved to a learning first organization. Security and compliance due to new threats, upskilling employees who, not sure how to identify electronic link that puts a ransomware into the company, right? Like that's a pretty big deal. And I think that ROI tends to measure time, money, energy, but impact looks so much different. Impact is, decisions like talent retention and recruitment, technology requirements. We have these remote and hybrid models, these work models that can drive, there's levers there that can reduce or increase costs. The focus on the employee experience, has to be the paramount objective. If people don't love what they do, they're going to use their feet to vote and go somewhere else. Continuous learning cultures, data-driven decision-making, compliance and diversity training, global and localization. I mean, there's just so many factors that CLOs are kept up at night staring at the ceiling. Like, how do we cover all of these? And how do we, what about our external workforce? If we have partners, right? Enterprise extended. I mean, it just, there's so many diverse drivers that they have to globally look at. And then if we talk about the other side of the coin, where, there are companies that are shrinking, or they have budget reduction, or they are in a hiring freeze in the market. And CLOs have to choose between human capital and technology at the end of the day. There's other parameters to keep in mind to keep support and maintain the organization that can be really tough decisions. We're seeing companies that are being reorganized. We're seeing companies that are going through, drastic change management. And I believe that we haven't even touched the surface with whether it's generative AI or artificial intelligence in general. And I will talk more about that. But I think that CLOs, what a tough job right now in the economy that we're in, and all of the different diverse sections that we have to cover.
Right. And so if you sort of go into the major 2 or 3 points that you made, one has to do with retaining people from an impact perspective. You want them to want to work in these growth industries, right? You want to retain them. So that's a big driver. The other one is where you have pressures to cut costs, and there you want automation to be seen as a driver. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that the starting point for this budgeting exercise is to first locate your company or your organization in the universe of organizations that are either growing or shrinking or flat, and then within that, what are the drivers? Do you see generational preferences, for example, younger workforce, playing into this increasingly? You mentioned remote work, but just the way they prefer to learn. Have you seen any differences, and how it impacts the way you allocate budgets to learning initiatives you sponsor?
I think that that's a great question. I have children, and I kind of observe, again, the human behavior. And a lot of young people are looking at devices and they're watching a video, but there's no sound. We've moved to, whether you want to call it closed caption or text-based overlay of video. And I actually believe that we're going to see this as a deeper trend as time moves on and these folks come into the workforce. I do think that there are just so many different learning styles depending on what, whether you want to say, you know, generation or age group. And I don't think that there's always outliers, and then there's always localized norms. So I don't know that I would say that age plays directly into it, but I think that how people are consuming content and observing that human behavior is going to shift us in the marketplace to have to respond to the delivery mechanisms of that information.
Victoria, would you like to come in on these questions?
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't know if it's a question of age, because we can't generalize, but I do also observe how people consume content in a different way. And now that there's like more generation Generation Z coming, and they consume knowledge through social media, through short videos. They're not going to be learning like 10, 15 years ago, where they just turn on their computer and watch a man in a suit talking for 1 hour. I think I think even people that are not just Generation Z, our attention span is not going to last that long. And this is my personal observations from what I see. And people do prefer short, bite-sized learning that they can consume, not just sitting in front of the computer, but also when they walk their dog, when they can listen to a podcast, when they drive somewhere. And they like something that is very applicable and very engaging and something relevant for them. So it's going to be less theory, although theory is important and frameworks, but it's going to be kind of shorter proportions of it, and more proportion will be given to storytelling, personal examples, people sharing their own experience, learning from failures. This is what they want to learn from, and this is what they're interested in. And that's what I've noticed. It's my personal observations.
Yes. So with this, focus on behaviors, increased focus on behaviors, do you see yourself leaning on providing greater budgets to soft skills, and even for that matter, health and wellness and well-being, because those things play into behaviors, right? Do you see that having a greater emphasis in the scheme of things compared to, let's say, process training or technical training or such?
Yeah. So it's a good question to ask. From what I've seen and from my experience, I've always seen the technical side of business is like a fixed cost. Right? When we hire an employee, we know that we need to upskill them, and specifically we need to teach them how to use a machine, how to operate something, about the systems, the processes, and of course, keeping them up to date with current trends, right? So we'll kind of have a fixed budget for that. But I see people skills and the soft skills as a variable cost, because the changes of the business, right, with the changes of the industry, with organizations reorganizing, right, or we need specific behaviors that might change. We need leaders that might show specific behaviors. We need to make sure that we have employee satisfaction with to minimize attrition. So these are going to be the variable costs that we might want to increase or reallocate budgets depending on the behaviors we want to see.
This is such a useful insight, because I like the metaphor of fixed and variable costs, because when you hire an engineer, you want them to be an engineer and a good engineer, and obviously be skilled with what they need to do. But depending on whether the company is going through an entrepreneurial transformation, or it's going through some rough times, or it's going through a merger, or it's going through just a scale up, the behaviors you need are different. So this is a huge learning for chief learning officers, is to first recognize where's, first of all, where's my company situated, like what you said, and then what's my company going through, and what kind of variable, learning needs are important for 2024, given what my company is going through. So thank you for that. That's a very, very valuable insight. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? Do you want to add something more?
I'm also interested in, the soft skills industry has so much content available out there. And the question is figuring out, what does your company stand for? What do they do? What's their vision, their mission, and then relying upon that to automate or tell a story. I do think that there are fixed costs that you can manage, from an L&D budget perspective. And I always think like LMS, LXP, seat license, like we know we have so many people in the organization, it's kind of a fixed cost. I think that there's other technologies that we look at, whether it's, authoring tools. Again, how many people do we need to have access to certain systems and tools that we're paying for? But then when you look at the behavior side, I think that motivation and the ability for your top performers to stay turned on, if you will, and then producing valuable outcomes. I do think that whether you're growing as an organization, there can be burnout because it's moving too fast, too big. Whether you're shrinking as an organization, there can be burnout because you're looking at, some of my best friends just left the organization or something like that. And I just think that there's got to be a balance between whether it's behaviors, soft skills, and where the company is on the map. There has to be a distinct balance. And I'm not sure that you can, again, I come back to impact. I don't know that I would say ROI, a total dollar sign can be assigned to that, because we know today that employees that are engaged tend to go above and beyond. I think I heard a stat somewhere, it's like 33% more effort out of an employee that's engaged in the company, right? So you have employees that are, highly engaged, you have promoters, detractors, however you want to look at that. And then you have some that are just maintainers. So I think it's really, as you dial this in as a CLO and you go, okay, well, 10% of our company is, really engaged and really dialed in. And then 70%, 80% is, maintainers, because you need your maintainers. It's important to keep the company on the rails. And then, they're probably the Jack Welch approach of like, just cut the bottom 10% is not a great strategy, but, to be fair and consistent, I think that there needs to be changes in organizations, again, whether they're growing or shrinking. So it's just a different perspective, and it depends on where you are.
Right. That's great. Great discussion. I think this would be a good transition into our next topic, which is content creation and content delivery, and the role of generative AI in that. So I guess the question is, which aspects of learning content creation and delivery do you see impacted by GenAI? Who would like to go first?
Victoria, I can jump in, or, I want to be respectful. So
Go ahead.
all right. Okay. So generative AI, I really think we're at the dawn of something different, almost, the reinvention of the internet. And I know that sounds kind of far out there, but I'm actually working on an AI for learning certificate through the Digital Learning Institute that's creating content focused on the tools and applications for AI and L&D. And it's fascinating what's out there. I mean, it's incredible how many companies are just literally starting up and producing something in the AI space. There's some great websites out there that document all the different AI platforms, and you could go down the rabbit hole all day. And I think what we're seeing is right now, I think today we're seeing singular tasks, right? Somebody's working on the ADDIE model for instructional design, and they want to create their learning objectives, and they're doing a single task focus on, using ChatGPT or some other model to do that. But I think what's going to really shift this year in 2024 is tasks being brought into a workflow. And so maybe their output to different places through multiple connectors. We're starting to see different connectivity, whether it's API or, there's actually other technology companies that are in the business of connectivity. And while content is certainly king, I think the platform delivery is going to be crucial for workflow automation. This will change digital web marketing, learning and development, and so many more parts of the business and technologies in ways that we really can't understand today. And while we're observing ways to improve prompts, again, singular focus, right? I see videos of like, here's the greatest prompt ever. And it's like, okay, that's just a prompt. It does help, but I think there's other tech stacks that are being built into interfaces with AI, and we need to be careful, and we need to focus on the human learner. Back to behavior, back to the humanistic side. Now, from a budgeting perspective, this is where I think CLOs, again, are staring at the ceiling, losing sleep. Something's going to come out and shift the learning and development world. Whether it's an ecosystem, whether it's the flow of learning and development. And again, I come back to budgets and contracts, and there's usually a multi-year contract done in a lot of budgets, and so if something comes out that really disrupts in the marketplace, who's going to be a first mover and who's not going to be able to be a first mover? It's the age-old question of what does it cost if we do this, and what does it cost if we don't do this? But I think generative AI, we're at the start. I've witnessed and attended multiple very interesting artificial intelligence webinars. I just sat through one recently where the content did not meet my learning modality, and it was moving too fast for me. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting experience. What if we were to slow down and reach the learner where they're at, meet them where they are? And I tend to wonder if AI could be something that overwhelms learners. But from a cost perspective, man, it's a fantastic tool. We're using it. There's many things being built right now, and I'm over the moon about it.
Victoria?
Yeah, I can also add to that, that for me, I agree with you as well, that it's all about the outcome. It's what we want the learner to get out of that training. Do we want them to just learn something? So is it just knowledge? Or do we want to see some kind of a behavior change on transformation? And for me, for now, what I see with AI, it can complement, it can help us create it can help us create slides, it can help us create facilitator notes, videos, right? Or those onboarding videos like, hi, welcome to our company. We're like, with an avatar. So, these kind of things, it can help us kind of understand how to, operate a specific machine in a facility center or in a sort center, right? But if we want to still, I don't think that AI can help us. I mean, it can help create content, but if we want to focus on behavior transformation as an outcome, we have to have a human being, at least delivering that training or participating in some part of the learning experience, like coaching or mentoring or something. We cannot leave everything to AI today when we focus on human behavior as an outcome.
Okay. I was curious, if you had a story about how your company is using generative AI, maybe that'll be something fun to learn about.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I want to backtrack because Victoria, again, it's fantastic to be on this panel with you, and you've given me such insight. And I think about like, so those are singular items, right? We generated a video, we generated slides, and I just think about like, okay, so the workflow becomes we generated all that and we delivered it to the specific learning enrollment group, right? Like it's just one flow that comes through. And I do agree that there's going to have to be a human somewhere in the middle checking that content and different things. But I think we're going to see mechanisms and ecosystems that are just going to really start to dial in the automation piece. And yeah, so Dr. Vikas, I'll say this. We headed down the road of integrating ChatGPT into Storyline. So Storyline is an articulate product that's used for authoring, and we've set up API keys and some other technology with Java. And we had this idea of when you're onboarding with a client or a company, what would it look like if you had just a continuous approach? So if we feed the AI 100 different topics, and then as a learner, you engage with Storyline Articulate every day, you get quizzed, and we tell AI, don't ask the same question to every learner and don't ask it in the same way or format, right? So your neighbor who might be sitting next to you doesn't get the same question you get on screen. And then you're going to begin to interact with that system. Maybe you answered the question right. Maybe you could have answered it better. But we're also going to have a QA table in the background that picks up the health score of that individual to say, okay, they're at this level today, day 1. In day 12, their health scores increased dramatically and drastically. And the idea is that whether you come back in day 60, you're still not being asked the same question. Artificial intelligence is so beautiful that you can take a stack of information and then we can quiz the learner, and the learner can have a two-way dialogue where that data is handled, brought back in, scored, and you get, an outcome and health score. And what we think is going to happen over time is that onboarding is just going to occur faster, whether you're working in a skill-based environment or whether you're working in, very specific information. I think about my time back at Verizon Wireless, where we were launching iPhone for the first time, and I was on that team, and digital learning was put out. I don't know, we dispersed to like over 500,000 people digital learning, way back in the day. And I think, wouldn't it have been amazing to take all those features and functions and plug that into artificial intelligence, quiz the learner, and then to see which sales representatives are ready to go sell the device? Like, we would have complete 360-degree feedback on every learner to understand where they are in their journey, again, meeting them where they are, and then enabling them to move forward in their skill and behavior development. So that's an approach. It is real, and it's, happening.
Great. Great story. Thank you.
Wow, that is amazing. I would love to see that you if you have examples, but I think for sure it can definitely help in make onboarding faster, onboard people faster, for sure. For now, for where I stand, we're not yet using AI for learning. We're learning how to, but we do use, Amazon does use AI for its customers on the platform. You can, for example, if you post a product, if you sell a product on Amazon.com, you can use generative AI for the image of that product. You can put it in different places. I know that they're using in ads, generative AI. So for example, if you bought a holiday gift, so for somebody, I don't know, let's say you bought a baking mold to bake cakes. So the generative AI is gonna propose, maybe you need a spatula, and maybe you need this, and maybe you need this, and then the next holiday they're gonna propose another bake themed, because they're gonna know that you bought it as a gift in a holiday, so they're gonna propose in the next holiday something like that as well. So that's pretty cool. That's how we're gonna start, and that's what I know that we're doing already. But we are yet to test it on learners. So I'm curious to see where it will go.
Indeed. It's time for audience questions as well. And we do have a question from Ward. Ward asks, do the SMBs, small and medium businesses, spend 2 to 3 times more per employee compared to large employers, entirely due to lacking economies of scale that large employers may enjoy, or are there other significant factors why they spend so much more? The smaller companies spend so much more per employee for training.
I'm happy to jump in on this.
Sure, please.
I believe that the SMBs suffer from not having deep experience. They don't have the right people making decisions, or they are not aware of other product offerings or the landscape. I've worked with a number of different clients and companies over the years where it does get a bit shocking to realize what contracts were accepted. Again, back to my time in the procurement industry, we'd look at spend, tail spend, MSAs and SOWs that were written and created, and you think, there's just not the deep understanding of the contracts, the technology, what they're signing up for. And I think that impacts them from a financial perspective. People that haven't spent time in roles and don't have the deep understanding of the L&D contracts and the scenarios, I believe they're going to accept, contracts and legal statement at face value. And, maybe the negotiation phase of that could have been taken in a better, broader construct. And I also think, economies of scale is an interesting concept where I would be curious to dissect the SMBs in classroom training versus e-learning digital delivery of content and look at the costs there. I think that's where SMBs, suffer historically, is that they're spending a lot of time in classroom. They're bringing people together. There's travel costs. There's different things. They're not leveraging the technology or the delivery systems and mechanisms that are out there today to make a great learning experience, whether it's digitally. We haven't even talked about augmented reality or virtual reality options and platforms. There's so many things that go into this equation. I think it's a great question. I'd love to, spend some time and dig into the data that's been presented, but I don't have a smoking gun, as they say, to say it's this one specific thing. But that's, again, opinion-based of experience that I've seen. I'd be curious to hear from others.
Sure.
Yeah, and I agree here that there's so many contract, and every day I have people reaching out with different service providers, whether it's in class or digital learning or some platform or an LMS or a tool to create training, or so many, or just experts that want to come and coach people. There's so many, and today it's very kind of decentralized industry, and we don't have decentralized and dispersed, and we don't have the visibility today to say, kind of put them on a kind of like a strategic matrix and say like type of learning, the audience, or costs, on some parameters to compare all the different providers that there are today. So it's difficult to identify what is the right thing for you at your time with the impact that you want to make. So there is no rule of thumb. There is no magic formula. It's to kind of choose the right, and I think there shouldn't be, right? Because it's a free economy. So it should be kind of open. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of answering the question without answering the question, but yeah, it's hard to tell. That's the short.
That's perhaps because it's a very good question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ward, for the question. I'm gonna move ahead here and just quickly do a few highlights of our discussion today. There are ways in which CLOs, as you can see, are looking at their budgets differently from the previous years. One theme we saw was impact versus ROI. Another theme which we saw was behaviors versus specific business outcomes. So there are different frames that CLOs use to justify their budgets. And then within their budgets, again, they're adjusting the weight of soft skills versus traditional fixed cost technical skills. They're also adjusting, for example, onboarding. There may be a greater emphasis on onboarding because of remote learning. So, and all of that is kind of playing into their budget decisions. Technology changes, specifically generative AI, are changing traditional learning content creation and delivery. And we just saw an example that you shared with us, and there's going to be many more with time. And businesses may request L&D to lead the skilling of workforce, because skilling has become clearly a big demand factor from the business perspective, whether it is soft skills or even reskilling of technical skills. And the effective use of AI in doing so is going to be, again, a recurring theme over the next year. So with that kind of a summary of highlights, I'm going to request Anuj to just come in and give us a quick plug about Harbinger, and then we'll go back to question and answers in just a second. Over to you, Anuj.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas. So for our audience, I'm pleased to inform you that Harbinger has been a trusted e-learning consulting and a development partner for over 30 years since our inception in the year 1990. During this time, we have worked closely with Fortune 500 companies and enterprise clients, assisting chief learning officers and L&D leaders in aligning business goals with the learning and development initiatives. As we all know, the future of work, learning, and automation is here. So Harbinger's long-standing experience in e-learning consulting and in executing enterprise e-learning projects, has really allowed us to come up with robust e-learning development frameworks. And these are software frameworks that our customers use as ready templates for transformation initiatives. As a group company comprising of 850 plus professionals, and with offices and development centers in the United States and in India, Harbinger has consistently demonstrated a track record in assisting our clients in closing the skills gap within their organization, fostering organizational growth, enhancing employee engagement, and elevating job satisfaction. So that was a quick brief about Harbinger. And we'll get back to Vikas now to take maybe a few more questions in the interest of time.
Sure.
I have the questions, Vikas, if you'd like me to kind of
Please.
share a few. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So maybe this question may be, Victoria could answer. How do you see diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEI training focus, for enterprises? So do you see that there is a focus in DE&I?
I can answer. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We have a focus on DEI. It also depends on what DEI outcomes we want to achieve. Of course, we integrate DEI training in every aspect of the employee experience. So from onboarding to upskilling to transition, it's going to be, if you want to transition to a new role, it's going to be a question in your interview as well. It's very important for us now to focus on that. We have lots of training on DEI, from internally, how to lead inclusive teams, or how to work through mitigate biases, but also with customers, when for customer support organizations. Absolutely, it's very important topics right now. I can say that today I am working on topics of looking with the current our geopolitical climate. I'm working on a training on how to fight anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, because it's rising incidents, and not in the company obviously, but in the world. And we want to create a safe space for all employees that work at the company, and make sure that they are included and they feel safe.
Great. So that's a great initiative at Amazon, and thank you for sharing that real-time, initiative and example with us, Victoria. Hugh, so there was a cross question to your comment, and the question from Sai is that, so Hugh, are you really saying that the speed of competence will be high in onboarding?
Yeah, and I used onboarding as an example. I think that if you needed to learn a process, or you needed to learn deep information about a new product or a new client, that's where I was trying to make the example of using generative AI just to be a constant dialogue with the learner. And I really appreciate that speed to competency being used. That's a great way to say it. And I think that that's accurate.
Right. So again, next question for you, Hugh, from Mayank. He says that really cool examples from you. And the question is, can you share experience with ChatGPT 3 and 4? And do you recommend organization budget for pro licenses and APIs?
We could spend an hour on the first part, chat 3 and 4. I'll give you a short answer. Yes. I think a pro license and an API key, and using that technology, is going to integrate across all the organization's platforms. I would highly recommend working with your IT group before just bringing this into an L&D environment. You need to understand what's going in and what's going out. But yes, pro license API, yes, I would see massive benefits if you're able to harness the technology and you know what you're doing. And there's got to be a ton of there's a ton of videos on YouTube that will walk you through how to incorporate these tools.
Perfect. So in the interest of time, maybe we were not able to take up all the questions, but we'll shortly answer to all the questions posted by our audience via email. So, with that, that brings us to the conclusion of this exciting and very informative session of Power Hour. So I thank you, panelists, for answering the questions. And audience, you are welcome to connect with our panelists directly via LinkedIn, and we have shared their LinkedIn profiles in the chat window right now. And we have also included the Training Magazine's November 23 report in the chat window. The link to that is available now. You could access that. And if you're interested in getting more information on how Harbinger can help you, in your e-learning initiatives, please do write to us at contact@Harbinger Group. That's contact@harbingergroup.com for one-on-one consultations. Vikas, any closing remarks? before we conclude?
What a wonderful power hour today. Thank you so much, Anuj, for organizing this. And thank you, Victoria and Hugh, for your time and your insights.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
everyone.
Vikas. Thank you, Hugh. It was a pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you as well. Pleasure meeting everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Signing off now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.